One thing that I found really helpful when I was starting out is when you're making an offer, if you don't feel uncomfortable with how low it is, you are probably not low enough. And so remember that when you're making your first few offers. That was a big thing that I remembered when I was making those offers.
The Deal Machine REI Podcast. Everything you need to know to get started in real estate investing.
Yeah, so I actually offered on this house $55,000 at first, and I felt like a little bit weird because that was a pretty low offer when I knew this house ARV was 160. Then I realized that they had smoked cigarettes and that the walls had permeated through with that cigarette smoke, and you can't just paint over that. That smoke will continue seeping through new paint. So then I had to drop it $10,000 more after I had it under contract. And I called them back and I said, hey, I've had a few days to have contractors run through this house and get estimates. And I'm not really sure how to say this news. It's not great news. Like, how would you like me to deliver this? And he was like, well, just come out with it. And I said, well, I really want to do this deal. I've got to do it at 44 instead of 55. And here's why. This drywall needs replaced, or it needs some type of really expensive commercial treatment to get rid of that cigarette smoke. He kind of paused. He took a day, and then I think he finally came back and grumbled, but he was like, let's do the deal. And so we got it done at $44,000. So one of my cases, I misestimated at first, got in there for the inspections, realized it was more than what I had actually estimated at first. And so I had to drop the offer price, and he still took it, which was great.
That's awesome. We lost a deal this week due to overestimating rehab costs. And ARV, like we said, ARV was about 145. And like you just learned, so 145 times 70%, that takes you to 101.50. I said repair costs of 80,000 because it needed everything. It needed electrical, plumbing, all of those things. So that took me down, before an assignment fee, down to 21.5. So then I put a 10K assignment fee on there, 11.5. So I made my offer at 11.5, and the guy came back at 16, and I'm just like, man, it's too tight. I don't think I can do this. The next day, the house sold to another investor, and I'm just like, what? Why did I miss that? Well, then I'm looking at my numbers, and I've done a duplex that was a complete gut, like on both sides, and the rehab cost was $92,000 for both sides to be completely rehab. Well, why would a single family house, less square footage, cost 80 that needed complete gutted, and a duplex that was double the square footage, double everything, needed 92? I'm like, I overestimated if I would have done that better, imagine like a 145 ARV times 70% rule minus what would have realistically been $55,000. Minus my 10K assignment, I would have gotten that deal. My offer would have been right around 36. I probably could have came in at 28 and locked it up. And I missed it because I overestimated my rehab cost. I see it after the fact. I'm like, well, duh. Why would a house be almost as expensive as a duplex?
Yes. I will say this. If I were wholesaling, I'd probably overestimate the rehab cost too, but hopefully I'd be able to make it as a bigger assignment fee if I were able to get those deals. One thing I realized is a lot of these investors who buy from wholesalers, typically in my experience, they have a lower standard of rental property than I do, for example.
Yeah.
Like I really like to have a little bit nicer than rental grade in there. So my rehab costs are going to be a little bit higher, but typically the properties I'm seeing get sold by wholesalers. I mean, and you're selling these, so you could speak from your own experience, but at least in Indianapolis, I end up seeing them go for higher than what would make sense for me. And then I see them finished at like a lower grade, more rental grade than I would. And that's just my personal preference. So that's kind of why I look for deals myself and go direct to seller. What about your experience in St. Joe?
So I think we fall in that same category of we have a certain standard that we expect our properties to be. And I definitely think that has limited us in like our offerings. It's made our offers be a little bit lower than what other people are. And so you definitely need to keep tabs on that kind of thing, because if other people are locking up deals after you've made offers, then that's a symptom that you're your offer is off somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's because
Yes.
you're calculating rehab costs too high, and I know because I'm fresh off of this mistake. Like I made the mistake of this is our standard, so that's what everybody else's standard is going to be. But not
But it's
every
not.
investor is that way.
Right.
And it
Yeah, like
sucks.
I think a lot of hedge funds will buy these properties at way higher than what would make sense for me. Because
Right.
I think they're just trying to make an appreciation game and get as
Correct.
much exposure to properties as possible. So that's an
Yep.
example where just their filter through how they're making decisions is totally different than mine.
Yep.
Just like somebody who's selling their house quickly, it's like, man, I wouldn't do that. But they're viewing the world through a different lens. They've got a different pain and a different life situation that they just totally want to be done with, and they're willing to take a discount for that. And that's why the business model works. One thing that I found really helpful when I was starting out is when you're making an offer, if you don't feel uncomfortable with how low it is, you are probably not low enough. And so remember that when you're making your first few offers. That was a big thing that I remembered when I was making those offers. For example, the first house I got direct to seller, which means it wasn't on the market, it wasn't listed for sale. I was going to make a $10,000 offer on it. It was a 6,000 square foot house in like a rundown neighborhood, but I knew this area was coming up because there was a planned 5-year development called 16 Tech in Indianapolis, where they were going to build a lot of big apartments, a lot of big research facilities. And I knew researchers and students would be coming in to live here. And so I was like, okay, this is a good area, even though it's really, really rough right now. And so I was going to make an offer of $10,000, but I remembered that quote. I was like, if you don't feel uncomfortable with how low it is, it's probably not low enough. And I ran the numbers again, came to $4,000, $700, right? $4,700 is what I got that house for. And he accepted it. And so that was just a reminder. And I went over budget on my rehab. So it's a good thing that I did that. I put about $65,000 into it. And then it was worth $100,000. But that's just a reminder for anyone listening here who might be starting to make their first offers is remember that if you're not feeling uncomfortable, it's probably not low enough.
Yep. True. Like it's very, very good to make yourself uncomfortable might lead to getting some of the best deals. Just This is going to be so awkward. And honestly, if they're motivated, there's going to be a response that's either going to be, hey, we're close, yes, or no, that doesn't work. And they're going to tell you why it doesn't work. They're also going to tell you where they were thinking they're going to be or need to be. So it's opening making that offer is only just opening dialogue. That's all it's doing. So if you just look at making that offer, this is uncomfortable. Well, it's just a conversation starter. It's just a break. It's an icebreaker. Now, if you get lucky and they accept your offer, sweet. If it's just an icebreaker, like we're saying, it's just starting the dialogue, and then you can negotiate with them. And the art of, making a negotiation, finding out what they have, where they need to be, what you have, what you need to be, and then putting the two together. And as long as you can get close, and as long as the numbers are still making sense, it can be a deal.
So let's cover that formula before we wrap up here real quick. So it is the after repair value when you look at similar homes that sold, and then you minus 30% for the profit margin. That's for doing the actual work. And then minus the repair costs, and then minus your assignment fee, which at a minimum should be $5,000, can be larger depending on what type of deal you're able to lock up. And that is your formula for analyzing a deal and making your offer. Short, sweet, and simple. Anything else, Ryan, before you go back and do that $2,000 grinder you love in your garage?
I've already done it for the day. But yeah, no, I don't. I just want to, I do want to be encouraging to everyone to, just like we said there at the end, like be uncomfortable, because good deals come from a level of discomfort. So be uncomfortable with where your offers are. And you can even let that be authentic. Like you can let them see how uncomfortable you feel in making that offer, because that's just going to build true, authentic trust with that seller. Like, gosh, I hate doing this part. This making an offer is like the worst part, because of the way it makes you feel, like the anxiety that you feel on that. But what can happen after that moment is what can make you money because you don't know what their response is going to be. They may be like, "Oh gosh, that's an amazing offer. I'll take it." Or, "Well, could you come up to maybe an extra 5K? Maybe you came under 5K on your initial offer. So, yeah, absolutely, I can do that."
Yep.
So
yeah, making the offer is what makes or breaks if you'll make or lose money on a deal. So this is a really important part, but don't overthink it. Use this simple formula and know that you can renegotiate if you have to. And we're out of time. I hope this episode was very helpful for you. And I know if you guys follow this formula and start making offers, you will be successful. I'm David Lecco at DLecco on Instagram. Ryan Haywood is at Heritage Home Investments. And we will see you next time for how to find buyers for your amazing real estate deal if you're one that wants to wholesale and make cash on our very next episode. So stay tuned. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.